Hi guys, sorry about that. Back. Back. So I'm going to have a play with this now. I should be back. Hopefully I should be back, guys. There is a bit of a lag, I know. Gee whiz. So I'm going to have a play with, I think I'm going to have a go with my Hydrus. I'm going to play with my Hydrus, and I'm in Linda Ravenscrofts Fairy and Fantasy Art. And this is on 300 GSM paper. So it will take quite a lot of water, but I'm not actually going to use a lot of water. I'm going to be working with probably these brushes, depending on the size of things. So we have Pro Art. I think that one is, it's a 3, a 6. I'm guessing that's a 9. So it's a Pro Art. And this one is a 103. So they're the riggers, what we call riggers. So I've wet one and the others aren't wet. So that's probably how you see them in the shop. But when you wet them and twist them, they become like this. So they're quite good because you can get a very strong colour like the Hydrus or the Peerless and have a strong colour here and take it to nothing. So they're quite handy for that. But they are bigger spaces, and the other brushes I have, let me have a look in my little magic box. I just have to move my water. Alfie has vacated the room. So I could use these. I might use these. These are my Artist Watercolour Sable. And I have a 1, a 3 and a 5. And again, it's quite nice to have an odd number, so you're missing them out. So you could have a 2, 4 and a 6. But I like 1, 3 and 5. So you've got, again, this is what they look like when they're not wet. Now I've been known to take, when I used to be an artist, I used to take a small bottle with me to the art shops and wet them. I'd ask first, but say, do you mind if I dunk them? So that's what you can see what they're like when they're wet. So I think they'd be quite nice on there, but I do need the liner out because I do use that a lot. So these brushes are for medium size and small. I do have my liner, and that's quite nice for putting finishing touches to things, if that's the right word. So I've got my Peerless in here, and they do look a bit dilapidated, but you still can get some nice colour out of them. And I have the full set, so I have the sepia colours. So they come, the sepia colours, they're in the brown sepia tinting kit. And then we have the bonus pack, and we have the original pack. And so there's 3 different ones to get in order to get all of them, if that makes any sense. Now I put them in my little pocket because I can shut this when it's wet in my pocket book. So I'm going to have a bit of a play. So I think we're going to have, these look like daisies, so they're white, but they have kind of an orange in middle. So we've got a chrome orange there. So where it's light is where I've used it, and where it's dark I haven't. You can see the sheen. And they actually come like that, but it's very similar to how I use it. It's pale. Same principle, scratching colour on. These are just painted on, I think. So I want quite a nice highlight. Now sometimes riggers kind of move and go in all different directions, but the idea is that you're pushing away gently. So that brush will behave. If you start going over there, then it's going to go miles. So the idea is you've got a little bit of colour on, and this brush isn't quite damp enough yet, and you're just manipulating it. And what this rigger does is it gently lets out water. So if you had a watercolour brush like this one, it would be completely useless, because the minute you touch the brush on the paper, water floods out. Now, it would probably be all right on this paper, but I don't want to do that. And I don't use these in any effect. I don't actually use them very much now. But we don't want that. But what the rigger does, that rigger can hold almost as much water as this, but it releases it slowly. So whatever colour you've got on the end will get paler and paler. And it works kind of the opposite to the chameleon pens. The chameleon pens has the colour here, and you make the kind of the lighter dilution solution. Whereas we're doing it the opposite way. We have the dark on the end, which is a bit of colour, and we keep going, and it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. So if you were doing this with chameleons, you would start with a light and you get darker, 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 till you get to the original colour. We've got the original colour, and we're getting paler, 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 and paler. And it only slowly releases the water out. It doesn't flood like these. These are designed to flood. These are for watercolour paper. And although this is the watercolour paper, technically it's a colour book, and I treat them the same way. So you can get the same watercolour effect, but you can use a strong, something like a peerless or a hydrus. You've got very strong colour, and it goes to nothing. So we could do that with this daisy. I'm going to use the middle one, I think, for this one. I could use this one. No, probably the middle one. So you have to get your brushes right, but if you do one page in a colour book, you will test the water. So what I'm doing with this is I'm dunking in water, something flat, because I don't want to do this with the bristles. Flat, dragging it backwards, twisting on a baby wipe. Now after about half an hour, you need to squeeze this out because it's going to get extremely wet. And I've used this before, so you can see the water is, you want it to be as originally a baby wipe as it was, because it will get where it won't release water. And when it does that, you don't need the pot, you can just do this. And that is going to give you enough water for a normal page. And you can even do that on a Bible page because it's so dry. It's just barely damp. We can be a bit wetter with this page because it is on 300 GSM. So I'm going to look for something that's quite a bright colour. So we've got in the peerless, we've got brilliant yellow. So again, you can see. Now I've done colour swatches for mine, and they're so vibrant I didn't get to the end. So where it's dark is original, and where it's light is going to be a paler colour. And I do actually have a piece of paper taking about. So we can prove that. So we can get our damp brush, twist on a baby wipe to get your point, and we can touch here where I've used it. Hardly nothing, but touch here, and we've got a lot more. I think I want a slightly darker one. There's the yellow ochre, which is nice. A chrome orange. I think we might go for chrome orange because it's quite a nice space, is that? But I am going to go with a smaller brush, the number 1 brush, because I want strong in one bit, and then so again I'm going to touch where it's the darkest, and then once you start, now this is a watercolour, so you're okay. You can do this quite a few times until you get it right. And that won't do much until we colour the background. And probably this is the only one I do backgrounds on. So this one, I want to work backwards, but let's see if I can do it. So again, twist to a baby wipe. So the number 1 is perfectly adequate. Touch the colour. The middle wants to be darker. And then we want to take this out. Now, all the colour, the work's been done for you because it's a grayscale. But I want to give it a bit of help. So we want that quite dark. And then coming round that way. So actually that's quite a nice daisy colour, and I wouldn't have originally chose it until I saw it on here, which was chrome orange. So we've got some more daisies, so we may as well do all the daisies. Every time you've got to wet your brush, because it dries very quickly, because it literally is 10 seconds away from being dry, so that's only barely damp. Every time I'm dunking and twisting on a baby wipe, because we need the tip to be a little bit damp to pick up the colour. And then by the time we get round here, we've got a natural highlight. So this would work without the grayscale. Now here I'm not going to do that. Here I'm going to have full colour because it's in shadow. So there is a bit of a difference. This one again, twist to a baby wipe. So if anybody's got any questions, just pop them in caps, because I'm reading chat from some different device. So welcome to Bunny's Designs. It's a live show, and it's recorded for Ustream.tv and also for YouTube, for people to watch at their leisure. So again, and pop that there. And I think we might want just a touch more on this side here. So this particular method, it wouldn't matter what paper you were on. It's not quite dry enough for the Bible page, but it will go on any photocopy page. And then she's kind of got little flowers. So I think there's like little purple blue. So again, I like to flick. And of course this is dry. If I'd have done this in traditional, it would have taken a long time to dry. There's a sky blue. There is a forget-me-not, and I think that's quite a nice blue. Don't think we want a purple. I think some nice mauves there, but I think I want to forget-me-not. So I'm going to put the other two brushes down actually, because unless I get to the wings, I don't really need those big. I don't think I need the bigger brushes. So thank you everybody for stopping by. Hope everybody's okay. This is Stream Thursdays. So I'm going for forget-me-not. I'm going to try and get the thing in so you can see. So where that is pale, but because I can just have we can have a test, can't we? So we can go for its strongest, and you see what I mean about the watercolour effect? Very strong to light. Very much like the chameleons, but this is why I invented this way to work. You can watercolour in a colour book with a watercolour. It is a bit of a smaller space, that, so I'll show you what the smaller one does. I think I'm going to have the liner, because I'm going to get each one. So that was wet and that's dry. So that's where we are so far. Then I have a really tiny one if I want to get to some spaces. Just bob it down there. I think if that's one. Thank you. So again, we've got forget-me-not, quite strong, picking up strong colour. But then if we start here and work out, it should go paler. It's not going particularly pale because it's a small space. And I might want it a bit purplier than that, actually. I think I'm going to go for... What colour are we going to do a dress? So when you look at this one, we did purple dress. And I know it's the same fairy. I think it's the same fairy. So it would be nice if she kept the same dress. Although they are different fairies. Oh, that is... Yeah, they are different fairies. So she could have a different dress. She could have a different dress. So, the daisies... She could have a blue dress. So I do like that deep blue for the dress. So I didn't want deep blue. So I think I'm going to stay with Forget-Me-Not. They have gorgeous names, these... I'm trying to keep everything in. We're on the cushion tray again, unfortunately. So I think I've got too much colour there, but we'll see. And because this is a liner, it's a small brush. Most of the work's been done, so I'm just going to actually pick up colour. We could have a paler one than a darker one. I think that's how to do it, probably. So I'm sure I'm going to be working in this particular way. That's one of the bunnies trying to escape. We never get far from pets, do we? I like this colour. This is quite pretty. And it won't make any difference until we get the rest of it done. And then each colour will pop in its own right. I've just realised she's a fairy in my pocket because I've just read what it says down there. It says fairy in my pocket. And she's in a pocket. And I think this is the only book that I do backgrounds in. I'm not very good at backgrounds. So again, we can... And there's one just hiding behind there. Now, they were probably little tiny daisies, but that's fine. And I do want a bit of an orange in the centre. So again, I've got my Peerless in my colour order. No, I tell a lie, I haven't. And I did like the chrome orange, but perhaps we should need a brighter one this time. So they've got a gamboge here. And again, you can look at the yellows, so some are brighter than others. And the brilliant yellow is very nice. She could have yellow wings, I suppose. I haven't thought of her wings yet. So she's going to have a blue dress, and she can have orangey wings. So I think we're going to give her as marigold. I think these are quite bright, so... Because of the grayscale, it's not going to show up as well. So sometimes you can be a little bit bolder than you want to be. Oops, and lo and behold, there are a couple hiding here. So we'll do the centres. And then we'll go back to our blue. let me not. And we can be quite bold under there because we want a fair amount of colour. So we've got kind of a real wet brush, but you couldn't do this. You could do this just about. Pages in colour books don't mind a small area wet. It's when you do a big area that it doesn't like it. So if you want to get kind of really wet, I mean, we're not talking buckets, but I like the fact that your paintbrush with the paint feels and acts like a perpetual marker. That's the consistency you want. So we've got some greens to pick out. So let's have a quick look at greens. Oops, I've disappeared into there. So we've got a nice olive green there, and we have a grass green. Now, I would be tempted normally to go to the Gansai Tambi Waters because I love these greens here. But I am working with just the Hydras today. So let's have a quick look. I think we'll have olive green. For this kind of fern. So I'm going up here where it's darker. Now, perhaps I should have gone with a bigger brush, but you do guarantee, and I'm just using full colour. I will use a bigger brush. I'll use my number 2 Pro Art 101, this one I think it is. Series 101. It's a bit bigger, but it does have a point because I'm just going to go in with full colour. And again, now you'll start to see these daisies. Even though I haven't done anything to them, they're going to pop. Because they're going to be next to a dark colour. So I've got to decide what colour shirt she's going to have on as well. And again, I might actually be tempted to use actually use a water brush. So we've got green under here. So it's cut short today because I didn't know my daughter was coming home today from uni. So it'll be a shorter one today, guys. Sorry. Because they're just going to natter all the way through. It's just no point me making videos today. Because they're not going to stop talking. So I'm sorry, guys. It's just not going to work today. They just have... Now there is a shadow, so I can leave the shadow. So I'm going to put that on there. So I kind of like that. I love the colours as they are. And again, I wouldn't have probably chosen that colour if I hadn't have chosen the peerless colours. So she's going to have a blue dress. So we'll colour the blue dress and see what happens. So again, sorry guys, it's going to be a shorter one. So we can do her hair, and again in the Hydras, because these are for tinting, we have some nice colours. So I'm going to go with the number 4 brush, because again this particular page can stand it. I don't want warm sepia. I'm going to have the brown sepia, and I don't know what it does, but it's not going to do much to her hair. So we've got some nice green there as well. I'm going to go back to the smaller brush, the number 2, because that's really going to make those shine out now. Maybe it's been a little bit too strong the first time, but that's fine. If you've got some really stragglers, you could possibly use the liner one. That might be the better brush to use, because it is a tiny space, this. Going back with a bigger brush. And we're just going to put that in there. And then we have that brown down there. I do like that strong brown though, it's quite nice. So we can see the hair sticking through between the plants. And we've got that little one going up there. So there we go. So I kind of like that. She's looking something like, hopefully. So yeah, what I'm going to try and do this weekend is to make some videos. I did spend 2 days editing one, and it won't upload, so I was a bit upset because it had music and everything, but we'll have to carry on with that one. So I want a blue dress, and I think I wanted the Blue Lagoon dress, didn't I? So we'll go to blues, if I can remember where I put them. So this Blue Lagoon, now again, this one is very strong. It's like a French ultramarine. So I've got the bigger brush, the number 4, and it's damp, but I'm just putting colour on the end because it's going to be very strong. So I'm going to start here and pull that, draw that colour out, because I don't want it to be in your face, that colour. So again, that was like one of those chameleon markers, but in reverse, dark to light. And I do like working that way. No, I didn't, Melody. It's a grayscale, but as I say, the more colour we get, the more these are going to pop. With it being a grayscale, I don't think I have white in the Peerless, so I wouldn't use it. So again, all I'm doing is picking up a little tiny blob because it's very strong, and it is quite a watery. So again, I'm going to pick up a little bit and go under there. And a lot of the work's been done for you, but we want this to get kind of you've got to have a fairly dampish brush. But you can get quite a nice effect. So again, going back under there, and then we've got a crease and a fold. Now you can only do this a couple of times because it's watercolour paper. So again, start dark here and work up. It should be in the smaller brush really, but now use this blue here because we want this to be pale. So again, I'm going to go back down there and do that, and then work this out to be nothing, and then I've got the same amount on there. So damp brush, go under there, work this out, and then what will happen is I should have enough on the brush to make that paler than the one underneath. But I can go in there and do darker things, but just at the moment that's what I want. I will show you just the liner. So I've got the liner with full colour right on the end, and that's going to make a dark shadow in there. And this is what you can do later on. You can start putting the darker shadow in. Most of it's been done for you, but it's quite nice to kind of really get a rich colour. But I'd let that dry first. And you can do this on an ordinary page, but you just don't work as wet. But as I say, because it's grayscale, it's all the work's done for you. If you've got any questions. So I don't think it tells me who's here, so thanks for stopping by. Oops. Sorry, I'm on the sofa today because I have a kneecap the size of a football. Right, so really pretty colours there. So wings, we said an orangey wings, didn't we? So again, I do need the bigger one for that. So we'll look at the orange, and again, it's all dry. I love the fact it's dry. I don't treat this book any different. It's just where I would let things dry out before I went back in, I haven't done. But everything I've done on here, you can do on an ordinary colour page as long as you just keep your brush barely damp. This is a little bit wetter because it's obviously watercolour paper, so it's quite happy. So let's have a look at our... There's an orangey red there, that might be quite nice. Got to think about the pocket, because if you put the pocket in, your daisies are really going to pop out. Again, a different blue, but maybe a purple. Maybe a purple jacket, so we'll have the orange wings. So I don't want the reds, so they're the reddy reds, orangey reds, they're the pinky reds and the pinky purples. So the oranges are going to be on this page, so they're the yellows. And then I have my oranges. So I've got deep mellow. Or there's cadmium yellow. I think I like this one. There's a chrome. I think I like deep melon. I like that one. So I'm going to use the big brush this time, I think. Yeah, I'm going to use the big brush. Twist it on a baby wipe to a point. So it is quite holding water. Number 6103, this one is. So it's dunked flat. That's why I like flat dishes. Could use, the best thing to use is a jam lid, a jam jar lid, and a jam jar. Drag it across and twist it so there's quite a lot of water in there. You probably would get away with a Kirby Roseanne, but probably not a Bennett Klein. So we're going to pick up a fair amount of colour. I'm not going to practice one, I'm just going to go for it. But I'm going to go for this one first. So the colour across, it's going to get paler and paler. And it was a bit too wet, was that actually? Because it didn't release the colour quick enough, really. to pick the colour up. Yeah, you see I want the orange in it, so I'm actually not going to do that. I'm just going to put it down. I want it to be a nice rich colour because I want the orange to react with the blues. So you couldn't work this wet on any other page apart from watercolour paper. And again, I'm going to get that nice highlight, and I didn't want it, but never mind. You have very strong in there and then a pale one outside. I suppose it looks quite nice. But when you've got the grayscale, you don't really need it to be. That's a bit better. Because we do want some colours on that tip. So we've got some quite nice colours there. I do need to turn the book because what you want is, you do want a nice angle. So again, I've got a lot of colour on there because this is quite dark. But then there should be enough to take this to be very pale on here. So even though it's a grayscale, I do have quite a nice effect. Now this colour doesn't seem quite as strong as all the other ones. Oops, I've got to be a bit careful because I want that dark purple, but I don't want any colour on my daisy. So I think chrome orange might have been slightly better. But it's nice just to have that. And we'll do the last one. And this is why you need that bit bigger brush for up here, because it's a bigger space. And I'm just going to pick up a little bit more because I just want a nice highlight on there. So we've got, because of the natural scale of things, we have a natural highlight, but we've also kind of, you can tell that's full on and that's not. But of course that will be up against the pocket and this will be out. So actually that works quite well, that there is a natural highlight there as well. And that's because you stay strong colour and then you go out. So now I need a skin tone. And I think there is... this called Ebony Brown there, but it's a very soft colour. So I'll test it first. Get my scrappy piece of paper out. Yeah, it's a very soft colour, is that? Let's have a look. There was another colour that was quite... I think we're looking... There's a yellow orange. Again, this is a flesh tone, I think. Yeah, that's a flesh tone. There's not much in it, but I think I've used this one before for flesh. So we want a tiny bit of yellow orange. And again, we're going in where it's darker first, because then we just have a hint of a colour. And this again is a little bit wetter than you would normally work. So again, we've got this under here, but by the time it comes on the arm, it's very pale. So you've got your natural highlight. Oh, well, it's on the paper, Melody. On the paper. I never use the water brushes you use the water brush. It's because it depends on the size of the thing, and it also depends on the actual paper. So this is 300 GSM. This is watercolor paper. You know, you could pour all that water on there and flash color into it. In fact, this is what this is designed to do. And I've got some paper here actually, so I could do a bit of a test. So these are 300. So you can throw loads of water on, and you're supposed to splash this colour in and get vibrant mixes and dribbles and splatters and sprays. But this is a colour book. Although it's a colour book on watercolour paper. I think Joanna brought some out, Kirby's brought some out. There are some colour books that are on 300 GSM. That means you can work in a watercolour, in a watercolour brush. You can use any brush you like. Start with a water brush or a fat brush, and put quite a lot of water on it. The way I work, it's dry. So if you'd have worked traditionally, it wouldn't have. There's still a bit of a bobble on there. If you were going to use very wet, I would stick mine down. I normally put mine, stretch my watercolour paper. The Kirby Roseannes, the Joanna Basford, Hannah Carlson, they will take a damp rigger. So that's not this. This is wet. A damp rigger has been twisted onto a baby wipe, and you can just barely see. It feels just barely damp, and in a couple of seconds, less than a minute, that will be dry. That's barely damp. That's what you want. Now this particular one, if I squeeze it, look, you can see all the water coming out. So this is too wet. I can pour that back in to my pot. So you want the baby wipe to be, or face wipe, to be the consistency of dampness that the baby wipe and face wipe is when it comes out the packet. And the idea is that you dunk the water brush and you drag it, and as you're dragging it, you're leaving water behind. All you're doing is twisting to a point, and you're just barely damp. Just barely damp. This particular book can take it wetter than that, but this is what you want. Then you have colour on the end, and you can colour in what we call a kind of a decent sized paper. But the Bennett Kleins and Bible pages are thinner. They're like photocopy paper. So the best thing to do is to have a practice with a page, photocopy it, or just draw some squares or patterns on photocopy paper and practice with all your paintbrushes. Oops. So even this one, I've got it so there's hardly any water on there. That's perfect for photocopy paper. But if you dunked it and used it wetter and shiny, it would only work on watercolour paper. So there is a couple of videos I've got on Bible journaling, Bible colouring, and that's how dry you need to be. And that's what you use for watercolouring on a tissue as well, on a napkin. I was watercolouring a napkin. That's the dryness you need for photocopy paper. But you can be that little bit damper and use that little bit longer paintbrush and manoeuvre it a little bit longer. If you was on a tissue and did this, you'd go through. But you've seen me do this a bit longer in the Hannah Carlson books, in the Joanna Basford books, in the Kirby Roseannes. Any book that's got, you can feel the quality's a bit thicker. They will take a damp brush. But this particular one is on watercolour paper. It's designed to have a lot of water and a lot of colour. It's just, I like to work in the usual way because it's easier. I hope that made sense. But this is what I call watercolouring. I invented it for a long brush with a tiny bit of colour. It's not watercolouring. It's not watercolours. It's watercolouring. It's colouring in a colour book with a damp brush and some colour at the end. And it took me 2 years to get to this. If you watch the first videos, they're not as good because I didn't use a rigger. It took 2 years to get the right brush, but it works. So it means you can use even hydrous and inks, which are very strong. You can use them on a colour book. So have a look on YouTube on watercolourists and you'll see what watercolour paper can take. This can take it. I didn't want to take these out of here, but I have some watercolour paper here, and one's like almost card. It's a lot stronger than this one. It's the bottom one, and I don't know what one it is now. But these are 300 GSM, but they're different colours. So, but it's rough. This is smooth. And I like smooth because you can do more finer detail. This has got the tooth, the roughness. You can see the bubbles in it. There, I think. There is, and this is extra rough. I think there is a fine one in there, but they're extra rough. So you can see the pattern. On this one, there's nothing. It's what they call smooth. I'll try and make a video of all the different watercolour papers I've got, and you can then see the difference and see what you want to work on. It's lovely to have a watercolour effect on that lovely bubbled paper, on that rough surface, but I like fine detail, so I normally don't do that. So where are we now with this one? Oh, skin. So she's got a bit of a highlight on there. So I can't now go with this colour, which is the normal, what I call the normal pickup, shall we say. So the normal pickup is, that's a normal pickup. That'll be dark. So I might as well do a leg. You know, it wasn't actually that dark, but it should have been. So again, we've got that leg. We'll do that leg. And then we'll drag this down to a highlight. So I need some of this to come down here. So again, I can do this a little bit. Not as much, but we want a shadow. And then bring that down. And you can lift that little bit off I've got there. So we've got more of a shadow on that arm there, so it doesn't really make sense. This brush is a little bit big for the other one. This one is the number 3. So I'm picking up some colour and I'm going to do the hand. It's a bit orangey, this. It's not the real colour it should be. And then when I come back, so I may have to just put a bit more on there so that it's got to match this one a little bit better. That. And again, this particular one can take it. Now, I would have thought the shadow would have been behind here as well. So we'll make that arm 3D. So again, we want a bit more dark there and here. So we've kind of got a rounded kind of arm. And that's not drawn in the actual colour book. So again, I'm just going to go back down there a bit more. Because this one definitely wants to look lighter. The other brush was slightly better, but because it's bigger. But that's okay. You know, you can tell that that one's in a bit of light, that one isn't, that one's in darkness. and possibly go back to that bigger brush, which was the number 6. Because we now need to make that little bit darker. Otherwise it won't look the same. And the same with there. So that's dark. Now I do have some colour on here. But I don't want very much, so I'm going to have to go where I've been before. I don't want it to look like an Oompa Loompa. So I'm going in the big space where I've been before. So I'm hardly picking up any colour whatsoever. So all we've got is the grayscale is doing all the work. And then we just want the ear. So again, don't want very much on the ear because it's highlighted. Just want it toned. So put that into there. And then I just want the liner. Because we're going to give her blue eyes. And I think we'll give her cobalt blue eyes. Suppose she should have green eyes really, but she's got cobalt eyes. And she wants some cherry geranium pink lips. Oops. And now she looks a bit made up now, and I've got a bubble there. See if I can get rid of that. Rub that out. Yeah, I've got rid of it. So she's in the pocket, and I did find another one of those. So I need the green, and I think that was olive green. So again, I need to just put that into there. And I love the fact that even though this is watercolour paper, I'm not working too wet, because I've just put my hand on her lips and it would smudge if you were wet on wet. But because I'm working dry, I love that, because I can do this in the hospital, I can do it anywhere, and I can just shut the book instantly. So there she is, half done in my Peerless. Thank you.